Hey, it's Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com. And it's Tuesday. It's November the 30th. This will be our chart lesson for the day. And this is going to wrap up another month. Believe it or not, we got one more to go, and then this whole year is done. I just don't know where it went. It went by really quickly. Seems like we were just starting the new year. It seems like it was only a couple of months ago, but they just keep rolling by. But anyway, we're about to wrap this one up. Hope it's been a good one for you. But let's go. Let's start out with a daily chart here. You can see we traded on down here. We bounced right around the purple line. So we really got down there into the oversold territory. Not really oversold until we get down here near the brown. But generally we've been bouncing around that green line, somewhere between there and the purple the last few times we've gotten down there. So we may bounce out of here now. We did make a new low today compared to the last couple of days. This was just an inside bar here. But these are some really big bars. The volatility has really picked up again. So much volume and so many crazy moves in both directions today. There's a lot of trades going to be on the chart. I'm going to move through them pretty quickly. But and there's probably some more you could argue for to be green, or you know, if it looked slightly different on your chart, you might even argue for it to be red or blue. But you know, there's probably a dozen or more trades marked on there now, and I just tried to mark the obvious ones that are pretty easy to see and that would be obvious that you'd probably want to take. So so if you see something you liked and I didn't mark it, it doesn't mean that you couldn't argue for it. So um, when we get days like this, it's just hard to go through every single possibility and talk about all of them. So I marked the obvious ones and I'll move through them pretty quickly. But you can see today the daily chart here. We closed well off the lows. However, um, we're still trending on down there, we're still closing lower. We closed lower than this low close on Friday from last Friday. So we're really testing this little. Really, if you look, we're probably testing the top of this range from where we originally started. I don't know why I can't seem to. Oh, that's just no wonder. That's just anyway. That's just a support resistance line. Let's see if we can get it just to extend on out. Yeah, we didn't quite test that yet. And that could be what we're doing, coming back to test that. That's what prices tend to do. They come back and test these support and resistance, and we came back and tried to test it here, but took off beforehand. So we may be coming back for another test of that. You know, if it holds, we'll probably go higher again. If it doesn't, we may trade lower. So we'll just have to see. But I've already wasted 3 minutes. Let me get over to the 2000 tick chart and let's get through these trades because there's a lot of. Okay, here we go. Here's our 2000 tick chart. We had this big, huge sell-off during the overnight, and you noticed we ended up early this morning. It didn't look like that was be a possibility, but we got a measured move plus a point or so two down here before we bounced. So that's a nice two-legged, two measured legs down, and we dropped pretty strongly here, but prices really struggled to get down there to get that measured move before the end of the day, but they made it. So don't argue with these measured moves. Even when it looks like we may not see one, we often get them. So fairly interesting. But anyway, let's zoom in here and we'll go through the trades. Again, you can see there's a lot of trades here. So I'm going to move through them pretty quickly. Most of them are shorts. The trend was down. There's one area where we had a couple of, I mean, we were trending up here for the most part. We actually were going sideways pretty much here. But there was an upward bias at this point, and that didn't end until we started this big move down. And originally I had this like so, but maybe this was a little bit steeper than what I've got it here. Even then, it's not a real convincing. I mean, we close outside right there, but it's not super convincing, and we do make a new high, and then we sell off. So I may have had my, that actually looks correct there. I might have originally had it a little too flat, and I think I had it just right along these lows here, but it looks like we probably do get a close outside. I mean, this is fitting pretty well off the bodies here. We start on the low and you go off those first bodies. It catches the bodies here, and then we get the break here. And notice when we came off this low, the last couple of times we went up, we couldn't get back up to the highs, and maybe this is more like this. That's a possibility too. It does fit well there, and we couldn't get back up to the highs on this last move up, and then we sell off. So that's the way I saw it. But let's go back here to the opening, or right around 7 when we start trading. 7 o'clock was right in here, and notice we're working now. We get a first entry long, and then we get a second entry long, and this is too bearish. They do have matching lows, so you might have thought about going long there on a second entry on this retest, but this bar is just so big. I mean, it's like 24 ticks. It's just really a huge bar, and you're going long right into that high. So I think you're better off to wait, and by waiting, you get this failure, and look how bearish that bar is, and you get a second entry short. I like going short right there just to try to get a scalp, and maybe we're coming back down to the trend line. It doesn't end up doing that, but it was an easy scalp, and then next thing you know, we're rocketing up. And notice you got a new low there. You're moving up. You try to go short once. You try to go short twice, and it bounces off that original yellow trend line. Fairly decent bar there, 8 ticks, fairly low risk. I like going long there. And plus you have this short-term channel. That's the first break, and we run to a new high, and then we correct again. And then watch what happens. You get a first entry, and then you get a second entry. And it's also a first entry, second entry short, so it's really a failure. I marked this one green. That's really congested. I don't like entering there. So I did mark this green, but because it tried to go lower twice, it may trap some people. So if it breaks higher, it could go higher. I wanted to take that trade really badly. I talked myself out of it because of the congestion, which is the right thing to do, and it went higher. I did mark it green because I was really wanting to take that trade. With it being a second entry long and a failed second entry short in an uptrend, odds are we're probably going higher. And it did. But, you know, anytime you don't feel comfortable with a trade, and because you, like here, I didn't feel comfortable with it because of all that congestion, but it went higher anyway. But I didn't let that bother me. But what a lot of traders will do is they'll let that bother them. They'll say, I knew it. I should have got in that trade. And then it does it again right here, and they say, well, I'm not missing this one, and they jump in, and guess what? It turns on them and goes, the bottom falls out of it, just like that right there. And so don't let that bother you because you did the right thing, and the next time it'll probably pay off. You're better off to miss a trade than to take a trade and regret it and take a loser. So go with that. I mean, trust your gut instinct, especially if you don't have a good vibe. Now, you can't be, don't take that the wrong way. You can't be so scared that you're scared to pull the trigger, because then you'll never take any trades, and you'll end up missing the best trades, and then then you'll force yourself into a bad trade. So that's not good either. But if there's a reason not to take this trade, don't take it. And there was, because that's clearly congestion. And it's really hard to know what prices are doing here. But it is a short trap, and it is a second entry long. So you might have taken that trade. That was a long explanation, but I think that was important to talk about. But anyway, we start working off the highs, and you can see the EMA is turning down here. We got a clear trend working down, so we're probably coming back to the trend line at a minimum. So, and this is not a real strong uptrend, even though it is an uptrend. And so when you get this downtrend here and you get a first entry, second entry, and look at that bearish signal bar, I like going short there. Just You're just looking for prices to come back down here. They don't end up they end up coming down here. They go higher first, but it's an easy scalp basically. So I like it. It's fitting with this short-term trend. We're looking for prices to come down here, which is where they went. It looked like they scared some of the shorts out and ran their stops here. If you didn't scalp out, only to trap them back in and then take it down again. So interesting how they did that, but that's what happened. And then you've also got this support right across here. And we come back down and test that support, but we bounce off the trend line. It took prices a few minutes to kind of get going. Once we touched it, they really did shoot up real quick, but you can see we had a little resistance at the EMA there, but it shoots on through, comes back, gives you a first entry, shoots on up, you get a second entry right there, and then we pull back and bounce off the EMA here, and I actually put that should be right there. Notice the new high, and you get the first entry, and then you get a second entry. And I like this one because it made that one tick lower and then turned and went right out the other side. I don't think I would wait and go long right here. It's just too big a bar. I mean, that's 25 tick bar. It's just really too big of a bar. But when it went past right here on the engulfing bar, you might enter, or you might let it break higher and drop a limit order and see if it'd back up. I don't think it would have. This thing just kind of shot through there. It seemed like it did bounce around here, so you could have got in that with a limit order, but I like entering that one with the buy stop one tick above. That's one engulfing bar that I liked. It didn't end up, I mean, it ends up very strong, but a lot of times those engulfing bars will break higher and trade up and come back, and you don't know what they're going to do sometimes. So they can be a little unpredictable, but I really like that one because that's a fairly strong move up. You're going to at least retest that high, but with it bouncing off that trend line, we're probably going to attempt to go the high again. You actually get a failure here. It's not back to the EMA, so I'm not crazy about it, and you got to go long right into the highs. I marked it green because it probably is going to trap people. It's a second entry short, a very bearish bar, but if you're reading the price action here, it's telling us we're probably going higher. So I definitely don't want to go short there, and maybe I go long there. I don't know. It's a little iffy, but if you took it, I wouldn't have a problem with it because it is a failure and a trap, and it's probably going to at least give you a scalp and a new high based off this bar. So that does probably give you room to get out, and you can see it goes much higher than that. I don't see any other entries up to here. And then, of course, we got our break here and a big move to a new high. And then boom, suddenly we're pushing through the EMA. There is a first entry, second entry here, but again, it started going sideways and couldn't close below that EMA. There was a second entry short there, but you would have got stopped out on it. So just stay out of that congestion. That's why I didn't like the earlier trade. And if I'd have let that first trade I talked about earlier bother me, and I went ahead and took this one, you see I would have got stopped out by one tick, only to see it go exactly where I thought it was going to go. I was hoping we'd get a lower high here, which we did, but you don't get a good signal bar. And then we're bouncing down here again. And it does look like it looks like we got to close when I pulled in here real tight and redrew this right off the bodies. You can see originally I didn't have it drawn that way, but it does look like we get a close outside, move to a new high, and then we sell off. So and again, we get a failure here, but it's way below the EMA. This doesn't really look like rejection. I wasn't crazy about it, so I just don't think there was a good entry there. Of course, we run up here. Notice that little trend channel. Got a break, couple of swings up to a new high, and then it sails off, and that is very telling. Shoots right through the EMA, comes back, goes lower, and then we get two legs back here, and you get a second entry right there, but the signal bar is no good. Then there's a lower high right here, but you're still above that EMA, and it's looking a little congested right there. So I would wait and see if you get the reversal, and sure enough, it comes right here. Just go short right there, and and you get a runner here easy, and that's off to the races. And if you catch that trade, I mean, even if you only rode out the first leg, huge move. But if you rode this, if you ride this out till you get a break, you're looking at a pretty big move there. Just say, assuming you just wrote it down to here, that's 17 points. But if you wrote it down to where we came out here, that's 32 points. One contract, that's a $1,600 move. Very impressive move right there. But yeah, failed second entry long, off to the races. Then you get a first entry and it breaks higher, and there's a second entry right here. By the time this closed, I didn't like the signal bar and it's too close to the lows, but if you might have let it break higher, it breaks higher first, and when it turns down and breaks out, you might have dropped a limit order in there to give you a little more room. If you did, I'm okay with you trading it that way. That wouldn't make you trade an engulfing bar, but this is a pretty strong move, and our measured move is way, way down here. We got a long way to go yet. So you may take that trade. I marked it green. It's borderline. If it would have closed real bearish and you had a little more room here, I probably would have marked it red. But the way it's set up, and it does break higher right there and give you a failure, but not a great place. It's not even at the trend line, much less the EMA. Just sit tight. A few minutes later, you get a second entry short right here. And it took this one a couple of minutes to take off, but off to the races it goes again. And you might have got a runner on this one. I'm not sure. I think it would have come back and got you right here, but I'm not 100% positive. And notice you're working now and you get a first entry and then a second entry long here that fails. And look how bearish that bar is. As long as you got room to get out, go short right there. And you might trade the engulfing bar. We've seen several of them on this today, and they've all worked out pretty well for the most part. So you might have even traded that, but I'd probably wait on it to close, and I would have just went short there. Another quick, easy move. And then it bounces. You got a double bottom here. Notice you're working up. First entry, second entry, just go short right there. It was starting to look a little sideways, but you got room there to scalp out. It doesn't end up mattering because it goes much further, but there's room there to scalp out anyway. And then of course it fails out the bottom, comes back. No setup this time, and it gives you a long setup here, but I just think that's the first break of that. I think it's way too dangerous to go long there. This is not a place you want to be going long. Even though you could have profited off that, it's not worth it. Just wait till this rally's over, and because you can clearly see this yellow channel. We've already had the little light blue one. We've already had a break and a new low. The real tight gray one, we've already had a break and two legs down. So it's time for a correction. But this yellow one, that's the first break. So once this plays out, we're probably going to sell off some more, and hopefully we'll, and there's a good chance we'll go and make a measured move, which is, you can see there's still quite a bit of room left there. I mean, there's still 15, 16 points of room there for a measured move. So the key is you got to let this correction play out. Don't be too early. Once this trade was over and didn't go anywhere, I didn't see anything else here worth taking, and then we're kind of moving higher again. But notice the green channel. That's the first break. Then you get a few swings to a new high. I did a measured move here. And we actually pushed a little bit above that before we sold off. And you want to make sure this move is over. So even right here, there's a lower high, but we're still above the EMA. There's still you want to be careful because it could push up one more time. It doesn't. It pushes on down, and then you get a first entry and then a second entry short right there. Bearish bar, just go short right there. There's a triple test right across there. You can clearly see that. So second entry short, triple test, bearish bar, plenty of room. And again, it's off to the races, and you probably get another runner there. But even if you don't like that, when we come down here and you make a new low and you get a first entry, second entry, and that confirms that trend line, third touch right there. Look how bearish that is. Um, it looks a little sideways, but you got enough room to get out here. And this is, we still got room to go to get down here. That's another, that bearish signal bar is the real key here. And again, there's a triple test up here. I didn't mark it, but there's one up here. And that just gives it a little more weight as well, because this is a downtrend. So we try to go higher once, twice, 3 times. Buyers they've got some buyers trapped on it. Look at these 2 big bars going up. And when that breaks just a tick or two and turns down and is that bearish, it looks a little like an up-down bar, but that little break higher there, if it hadn't broke higher and this was an inside bar, I'd say nope. But with that break higher right there, right at the key entry point, take that trade. You may not get it but a scalp out of it because it could bounce again, but you would have got rewarded for this one. Most likely you got a runner on it. Drops on down. We get a little bit of overshoot here, actually, so that tells you there's probably a break coming, so be real careful getting short here. There is a first entry, second entry. I didn't mark it because of the congestion, but that's another one you might consider. The problem is that overshoot. That concerns me. And I'm pretty sure that this is correct because you can clearly see everything working off that midline on both sides. So this looks like an overshoot. So that's the reason I didn't mark anything right in there. And then we're working lower again, but I still don't see anything I like. There's a new high right here. So first entry, second entry, but you got to go short way down here with only a few ticks to go, and you see it bounces. So just wait, and then suddenly you get a first entry and a second entry short. Look how bearish that bar is. You did get the overshoot, so you did get the break, but we're going to make a new low here, almost guaranteed on this trade or on this move. That's just too big a move not to test this low again. So timing's everything, but here's you a little more information. If you draw your little channel up, you get a close outside and a new high and a second entry short and a very bearish bar. That's another no-brainer, quick, easy one. And then you make another new low, first entry, second entry, and another huge bearish bar with room to get out. Just take it. And then you actually get another second entry here, but look how sideways that one is and no room to get out. And you got a possible trend channel line down here, and we bounce right off of it. So you got the break, a couple legs down, and now we're rallying again. But you need a really good setup to go long. You don't get one here. And then your failure's here, which is too far away from the EMA. And here you only get a first entry. I was kind of waiting on the higher low, hopefully here, but it never comes. Well, I mean, we do get a higher low, but it's way up here. And by that time, you're starting over again. I'd just call this another first entry. And again, it doesn't go anywhere. And you get a first entry, second entry. But we pushed under that EMA, and this closed under it. It is a second entry long. You are still looking for a retest of the high. I think you, on a big downtrend day like this, I think you need a little better setup than that. So I didn't mark it. And then, of course, we do run to the new high. We come back. We try to go higher once and fail. So you got a lower high with a big bearish bar. And this looks a little sideways. You got plenty of room back down here. I like going short right there. Again, that's that trap. I would have liked it better if it would have went on past, but I still like it. And then we bounce again. We try to go lower, and we tick higher again. And it can't get below there, but if it breaks below there, you got plenty of room down here, and it's going to at least run down to here to test this support again. And hopefully the trend may start up again. So this turns out to be another really good trade you might get a runner on. And there's basically a double top up here, so that's a first entry, second entry. So you could look at that as a second entry long. You can clearly see 2 legs down, but if you just start off the lows, you get a first entry, second entry short. So it's a failure to the upside at the key entry point, and it's a second entry short too. And look at that signal bar again. Go short right there. As you can see, it didn't even run on down here, but it's a fairly quick and easy scalp out of it. And that's all we're looking for. guaranteeing, and that's why we do the scalp and runner, because even though this didn't continue on, we still got our scalp, we still banked some money, and the runners were freebies. And of course, we do get the close and a new low here. We run, look at that run right through the EMA. First entry, second entry, and that's a nice looking second entry short. So when it turns down and bounces real quick, it's going to trap some shorts when it breaks higher right here. I like, on these traps like this, I like going long out the other side. But on the engulfing bar, but you could, as bullish as that is, you could put a buy stop there too. Quick, easy move. No runners here. And then you run up, first entry, another second entry long, right off the key entry point. Nice signal bar. It is a little closer here. You might let that break higher and then drop a limit order. Just make sure you got room. I think there's enough room there anyway, but just make sure you got enough room. See how many ticks are in there. Doesn't look like there's enough. So yeah, you need to, you want to at least let this break higher and back up. And you can see you backed up. You probably could have got in there a couple of ticks back, which maybe gives you enough room, because this one only has 4 ticks from the high to there. So you need a couple of extra ticks there, but you could have got it. And this one ends up running on up. Then you get another first entry, another second entry, and it's right where it's the first break again. And the problem, the only reason I made this one green is because how big the signal bar is. I mean, it's 16 ticks. It's a fairly large signal bar. And you're probably going, you're on the second entry long, right at the EMA after the first break of the trend line, you're probably going to make a new high here. That's a pretty strong move. So they're going to probably run it up. And you can see we actually ran 2 legs up. And then notice what happens. It drops through that EMA. Makes a new low and then makes a first entry. It actually makes a second entry right there, but that signal bar is not good enough. It looks a little congested, and you get the triple test. This is like a repeat pattern. I didn't mark this one, but you might have considered going short right there. If the signal bar would have been a little better, I'd have marked it for sure. It's still relatively bearish. It's one of those you could argue for green. There's probably going to be some others like this. So, and you can see that where does it bounce? Right at the support, but it ends up dropping on through. You wouldn't have got a runner on that one for sure, though. But just wait a few minutes. We run down here. We bounce off the lows. We get a first entry, second entry, and there's a nice second entry with a great signal bar that confirms the trend line. Go short there. And a few minutes later, you get another second entry. Same thing. And this time, you also get a failed second entry long. So it's a trap to the long side and a second entry short. Just go short, and you can see how quick and easy that one was. Unfortunately, they came back and got the runners on this one. But we continue to work lower, and that took us into 230. So we made a new low here, and there's a first entry and then a second entry. But that's congested, obviously, and that's not a good enough signal bar. And then that took us into 230. So I didn't see anything else after this about 210, 209, 210 trade. But that's why I saw it. We'll back out and give you another look at it. We're almost 30 minutes here, so a lot of trades. And like I said, you could argue for a few more in there to be green or whatever. But if you couldn't find you 2 good trades a day, even 3 good trades, then, you know, I don't know what to tell you. You got a lot of work to do. I mean, that's what I'll tell you, because they're there, and several of these are just obvious gimmies. So some of these weren't as easy to see, but there's a handful in here that are just gimmies. You know, second entries with the trend. Take them. And anyway, I'm not going to beat around the bush. We'll wrap this up before we hit 30 minutes. And hope you had a good trading day. The volatility is probably here for another week or so. As we go into the end of the year, it may start to slow down again. But for right now, it's relatively, this is starting to look like COVID days again, days like this. So anyway, I'm done for today. We'll be back again to do it tomorrow. This is Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll see you next time.